Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm their friend and guest, Alan Singer.
Thank you for being with us again, Dr. Alan Singer. You're here because we rely on your expertise quite a bit, and we're going to try to take a look at some of the stories, issues that we have discussed over at least the last 12 months. And you were with us on many of those occasions, so you were with us again. As usual, we're taping the Wednesday before our Monday air, and it's being brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and Zoom. One of the stories that has been percolating and probably will or may not, but I think we need, as an organization called Media Watch, to at least weigh in on it, is the Chris Cuomo firing by CNN. And I remember in the previous show, Dr. Singer, you reminded us that he had fallen down on his journalistic standards, what we consider good professional journalistic standards, when he was engaging with Bill Maher. Bill Maher came on his show and they were discussing critical race theory, and he let Maher I guess basically get away with a whole lot of inaccuracies without any pushback. And Bob, as a longtime professional journalist yourself, what was your comment? I can't quite remember how you phrased it about his failure.
Well, I mean, Chris, he has an ego. I guess he was sort of in a comfort zone. Being a comfortable journalist doesn't mean you're a good one. It means that you're comfortable in your position, and that you can basically wing it or mail it in. And as far as the Bill Maher interview went, he sort of mailed that one in. He wasn't the give and take journalist that we expected that day. And the fact that he got fired over his assistance of his brother, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, by using his political and media contacts while an anchor for CNN, it's something he should have known was beyond what he could do. But here again, he has an ego. He's done good journalism, decent journalism here and there, but he's failed as well. But this was an egregious oversight in his
So,
professionalism.
Alan, the key thing, as a historian, you've stayed on top of issues that get covered properly and don't get covered properly, and as someone in the hire and employ of an institution like Hofstra University, or if you were hired by any other university, there are certain things that you're obliged to do as a professional to not put your company in jeopardy and not put your own professional relationship and reputation in jeopardy. And when I read the part, because the New York Times did a takeout on the whole thing about why CNN seemed to be walking with kid gloves around him, just gave him a leave of absence, gave him a suspension initially. But when the firing came out, they ran a piece, and the key phrase in the piece that jumped out at me was his boss, Jeff Zucker, offered him the opportunity to take a leave of absence to go help his brother in his brother's time of crisis. Now, as a professional educator yourself, Alan, isn't that a smart move on the boss's part?
I mean, it's hard for me to say. Look, we like to think of the media as kind of being like Caesar's wife, pure. But the reality is we know that that's not always true. We know that Fox News is not a media outlet. Fox News is a right-wing propagandist organization. But this is not something that's new. In the beginning of the 20th century, they had what we called yellow journalism, where the function of newspapers was really to sell papers by stirring up controversy. And truth was sacrificed. In the 1950s, McCarthy period, what Senator McCarthy did is he would have phony news releases just before the deadline for the afternoon papers. Now, they knew that these were phony news things that they could never check in time, but they let it go. They released them as if they were truth. So there's a long history of media not being professional, and Chris Cuomo is not. You know, as a university professor, the university expects me to make clear that my views are my own and not those of the university. I don't represent the university.
As it should be. And because Jeff Zucker, Chris Cuomo's boss, understood that CNN could be jeopardized by Chris Cuomo's proximity to his brother, he basically said, I want you to distance yourself from us while you defend your brother. Why don't you take a leave of absence? And Chris Cuomo, because Bob nailed it earlier, had such an ego, he just felt, oh no, I don't need to do that. I can stay here and I can keep drawing my paycheck and I can keep doing what I'm doing. And who knows, I can still help my brother without jeopardizing my reputation or my company. And guess what? He couldn't. And
well, he pretended that he really was not a political consultant, which he was. And he maintained, I was just helping my brother. But then the investigation by Attorney General Letitia James made it very clear through the email exchanges that he was acting as a political consultant. He was not acting as a family member.
Bingo. And all he had to do when his boss said, would you like a leave of absence, was say, yes, period. He would not be in the position he was in, and CNN would not have to be beating back all kinds of bad press and bad publicity. But we're beat up on this long enough. Let's get to some of the other stories that we really...
Let me just make one point, Eric. I mean, it's okay if you're a journalist to have an opinion and to do things outside of your journalistic job. But the thing is, you have to declare that. I mean, I've been in a position working for news organizations that thought their reporters should not have an opinion on anything. Should basically just shut up and report. And of course, in our own homes, in our own school districts, we're going to have an opinion. And you know, my paper, you know, didn't want us standing up at city hall meetings or school board meetings and expressing an opinion. You can do that. You just have to declare it and make sure you say, I'm not speaking for my company. I'm speaking alone. And in Chris Cuomo's case, a leave of absence would have taken care of all of that. So yeah, I'm sorry to extend this, but you know, just it.
You're right. You're right. That's a fine point to make. And the bottom line is, why not take the leave? Period.
Well, because you get paid. He was getting paid $6 million a year, and
I commend him for trying to defend his brother.
and the salary at the same time.
Defending my family members, but I make sure I'm not going to jeopardize my reputation. I'm going to take that leave of absence and go do what I need to do for my family. Period. That's it. But speaking of doing what's right and doing what should be done properly, and this might be editorializing, but there's a key bill that's coming up sometime soon, I'm not sure when, about the criminal justice system. And I believe there's a commission that's been operating on taking a look at the top of the criminal justice system in this country, and that is the United States Supreme Court, SCOTUS acronym. And this commission is looking into what should be done about the current state and status of the Supreme Court. And part of that is to take a look at whether it should be expanded or whatever. What have we seen and what do we know about that?
Well, part of the problem is the Democrats who have no clear proposals. The Supreme Court does not have a set number of members under the Constitution. The number of justices is established by law, and it's been set at 9, I believe, since just after the Civil War. So we're looking at about over 150 years ago. They wanted to be an odd number so that there could be 5-4 votes. Mm-hmm. FDR had proposed expanding the Supreme Court, adding a new justice for every justice who reached the age of 70, because the justices have a lifetime appointments and they could be there until they're drop dead. But Biden has left it up to commissions to investigate and has not made any proposals himself other than it needs to be investigated. And right now we're in a crisis in the nation. Donald Trump nominated the last 3 justices. And there are a lot of questions about their judicial integrity, at least on my part. In the last discussion of the Mississippi restriction on the right of women to have an abortion and reproductive freedom, the 3 Trump justices each questioned whether Roe v. Wade should be continued as an established precedent. Well, the thing is, during their judicial hearings, each one of them swore under oath to respect Roe v. Wade as a judicial precedent, and that as a judicial precedent, that should get weight in any court decisions.
Yeah, right.
I'm looking at a Supreme Court where at least the last 3 justices, it looks to me like they lied under oath. Either they outright lied or they twisted and they wiggled, but they did not answer the questions honestly.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think that's grounds at least for impeachment, if not indictment. But
and of course, one of those appointments was saved for Trump by Mitch McConnell and by the Republicans, and an appointment that Obama should have gotten was
yes,
not heard, and so this is where we are.
Yeah, look, the commission, that's the last thing I read was they're wrapping up their investigatory, whatever they're doing, and are supposed to be reporting back sometime soon, whether that's early January or the first quarter of next year, I don't know. I never pinned down who was appointed to that commission. I have no idea how many people were on that commission. All I know is, rather than putting forth, as you said, Alan, proposals specifically that should be looked at, he said, well, you people go look at this for us and come back and tell us something. But you're right. I believe it was Justice Sotomayor who said something about the fact that if they overturn Roe v. Wade, based on the way things seem to be going in the discussion in that Mississippi case, whether or not the Supreme Court would be able to avoid the stench of being a partisan body. And so she seems to have a gut feeling that what's going to happen in that Mississippi case is not going to be good for Roe versus Wade.
Or for American women, especially lower income minority American women, who are going to be the ones who are the most denied reproductive freedom.
The women's question is back with us with a vengeance, as some people would phrase it. So
can I add one more thing on this? During the questioning, Kavanaugh, who was the second of the Trump appointees, he's the one that Bob was referring to, that the nomination should have gone to Obama and the Republicans stonewalled. Kavanaugh raised, well, shouldn't the Supreme Court be neutral on these issues? And I'm listening to that, and I said, neutral? No, your job is to defend due process and American liberty. It is not to be neutral. Haven't you read the 14th Amendment to the Constitution? Apparently, either he didn't read it or he doesn't understand it.
Or he doesn't care.
I'm with you on that. That's willful misreading or uninterpreting, or I forgot what it said, because this becomes a political agenda, which is exactly what Trump said. I'm going to appoint judges that will overturn Roe v. Wade. And the Republicans said, yes, that's what we want you to do. And that's what they did. And so this is where we are. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But that's the top of the criminal justice pyramid, we come down. There were some egregious cases, new and old. I saw an op-ed or an opinion piece. Again, I think it was the New York Times. I got a lot of New York Times inbox stuff that seemed to pick up on stories that we have done on Media Watch in the past. But you recall the woman in Chicago who the Chicago police broke into her house, wrong address, wrong information, and the woman was about to get out of her bath or whatever. And when they broke into her house, she grabbed the robe, put it around her, and screaming at the top of her lungs, "You got the wrong house, you got the wrong house." They said, "Put your hands behind your back." And because she had to comply, she dropped her robe and put her hands behind her back. And so she's standing there stark naked, and they let her, and they handcuffed her naked and left her there 10, 12 minutes while she's screaming at the top of her lungs, wrong house, wrong whatever. And long story short, she sued. I don't know if you can pull up that name, Bob. But
yeah, I'm looking for it, and it was such an egregious case.
The case basically, they eventually discovered they were in the wrong house, and they basically just packed up and left, did not apologize, did not do anything. So she and her lawyers sued them. And they basically initially said, "No, you got no case. We're not going to do a damn thing for you." And she, so traumatized, she lost her job and tried to get another job. And in the course of trying to do that, the way she tried to leverage the city of Chicago was she took her a year to get the police video, body cam video. It took from a February 19 to February 2020. And she then leaked that video to the local Chicago television station. And when it hit the station, I mean, people were irate and the story just went national. And then all of a sudden, the city of Chicago decided, "Oh, we need to work something out." But it is now almost 2022, right? And they have not worked anything out. They have been stonewalling her. And so the question is, what does it take to get justice in this country if you're a Black female who has been egregiously aggrieved by one of our major cities?
And her name is Anna Jeanette Young is her name. And yeah, and like you said, the Times did a story on whether she will ever see justice. But you were about to say, Alan?
Oh no, the Chicago Civilian Office of Police Accountability is calling for the 8 officers to be either fired or suspended. And they're charged, 15 officers are charged with over 100 allegations of misconduct.
Before this woman, she was
against this woman
first, okay? And that was part of the reason why she felt like she needed to sue the Chicago Police Department of the city of Chicago, because these people were going to walk away and just pretend they hadn't done anything.
Right.
They were going to give her no satisfaction. She's got PTSD from that thing. She jumps at loud noises. She can't hold down a job. She is, I mean, if ever there's a case where somebody needs to shell out a ton of money, that's a case. So that's one we wanted to update our viewers on, because we covered that story quite a bit when it first came to our attention. And this is the latest, folks.
But that was an easy case, relatively speaking. A simple apology and a simple "let's look into this right now and take care of this right now" would have solved it at that time. And you're right. And I'm surprised that Mayor Lightfoot, Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, hasn't done anything with this up till now. So that's rather disappointing for someone I had a lot of hope for.
Yeah.
Part of the problem is there has been serious crime issues in Chicago, and the union has not been cooperative, and the union is defending these officers and claiming that the recommendations to dismiss is, they quote, "disgusting display of leadership." So,
okay, so she's in a bind.
She's in a bind.
She doesn't need to be in a bind. Okay, all you have to do is look at the evidence of what happened to that woman. There is no bind to be in. Basically, she has recently come out with one of these PR kind of statements about bringing this to a satisfactory end to all of the parties involved. You know, the typical PR crap. Instead of saying, I'm going to make sure this woman gets justice, I'm going to make sure we right this wrong. No, that's not the kind of statement that's come out from her. So you're right, Bob. We need to be seriously disappointed in her response to this issue. But folks, we'll let you know how that suit plays out as it moves along. What was the news story is a crazy story that I just read. And it's about a former New Orleans Saint lineman. You guys got his name, Oliver, I think. The guy was arrested by some Alabama state troopers on Saturday, this past Saturday. We're taping on Wednesday, so it'd be like 2 Saturdays back when.
Yeah, the name is Glenn Forster. He's a former, I'm looking at my notes, former New Orleans Saints defensive lineman.
Right.
And he died in police custody. Apparently it was handled by the Pickens County Sheriff, but he was arrested in Reform, Alabama.
Right. And he was arrested on a Saturday. On a Monday, he was dead in police custody. That is the one fact that we know for sure. Dead in police custody the Monday after his arrest. Yeah. And there's no explanation for how he died, why he died, and what kind of investigation is going on into the cause of death. The one line I read was, an autopsy is being performed. That for me is just, oh, I forgot to mention, the former linebacker is a Black person, okay?
Yes.
Now, the judge who arraigned him said that he was in some kind of serious mental state, and it should have been treated that way. And his family is charging that after he was involved in a fight with police officers, he was denied medical attention.
Hey, you know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Or do things really change? Okay, so that's criminal justice. New story. Old story is the Taser police officer confusion. Is that the one out in what? Almost blocks away from the trial of George Floyd?
It was also in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't that far. Right. The distance wasn't that much. Right.
Yeah. So this particular female police officer, white, who theoretically was doing a training operation for a new police officer. And in the course of that, they decided to pull over this young man because there was some air freshener hanging from his window or mirror or whatever. And because of an air freshener traffic stop, she ends up shooting this young man. Now, she claims she was reaching for her taser and shot him by accident. But she's being charged with some form of murder. I don't know what degree, because they claim there's enough evidence. And there have been stories about how you can mistake a taser for a gun. But when I look at pictures of that crime stop, that's the crime scene, I see a bright orange thing that represents the taser, and I see a black handled gun that represents a gun, and one's on one side of her body and one's on the other side of her body. So I don't understand how you can mistake your taser for a gun. And I don't understand how you can shoot somebody dead because of an air freshener hanging in his car.
And the Minnesota police officer's name is Kim Potter. She's being charged with manslaughter for fatally shooting Dante Wright, a Black motorist. The core of her defense is clear. She says she meant to use her taser, but grabbed her handgun instead. And in the AP story you sent me, Eric, the good thing, well, I don't want to, well, I'm voicing an opinion here, but anyway, the other cases in which police alleged that a gun was mistaken for a taser, in those cases they were convicted, which is, good case law as far as I'm concerned in this case.
Well, again, the taser and the gun are on opposite sides of your body. So if you're right-handed, you have to reach across your body to get to your taser while the gun is on your hip, so that the locations are such that you can't make confusion. It's possible during a scuffle to make a confusion, but she pulled her gun. She did not pull her taser.
And when the other person is not armed, you have time to look to see what you're grabbing.
Oh, I can't.
I mean, that's my logic here.
Yeah, I hear you.
The police have argued in many cases, and it's been accepted by judges, is that the car itself is a lethal weapon, and therefore the police are responding to someone who is in control of a lethal weapon. And that has been accepted in police.
Yeah, they always accept police arguments 9 times out of 10. That's why police rarely get convicted. But if she and her other officer were not standing in front of the car, which they weren't, they were
by the
trying to
door.
pull him out.
Right, they were by the door.
It's no longer a lethal weapon. I don't care how you going to phrase that as a lethal weapon. So
and we have a minute and a half left.
So I can't deal with that. Folks, we'll stay on top of that story and let you know how that transpires and how it's reported as we proceed. In the final less than a minute, there was one other topic that I thought we should remind people of. I'm not quite seeing it in front of my list here.
Yeah, well, I don't think we have time for the CRT discussion today. But
no, that's too deep. But Alan, we're gonna do some more updates on the next show. So hopefully you'll come back with us. And I know you have a piece on what's going on with school boards, school board fights, school boards and CRT. And so I'm going to say we'll save that discussion for the next show. Is there one other quick update that we need to tell our folk before
just to say if they saw a guy who looked like Alan Singer on ABC last week, they weren't mistaken. That was Alan Singer on 2020 last week. And congrats, Alan.
Thank you. I was discussing the history of citizens' arrest and its connection with slavery. That
Right.
citizens' arrest very much is rooted in the fugitive slave laws.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. This has been Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on Twitter and YouTube on Media Watch EVT.
And I'm their guest and friend, Alan Singer. Thank you for having me.
Catch you next time, folks. Stay safe. Stay well.